Hey, this is Chris Menard. Let's go ahead and get started. I appreciate you attending this webinar. This is actually the second webinar I've done for the Executive MBA students. Feel free, just so you know, on your screen from your side in the bottom left corner is how you control your audio. And also at the bottom, you should have a Q&A and a chat option. Everyone in here should be from the Executive MBA program. And if you're not, well, I hope you enjoy it anyway. But feel free if you have any questions to type them in the Q&A box, and I'll pick them up. So let's go ahead and get started with tables in Excel. And before I go, hey, Jeff, I just unmuted you again. Can you see my screen and everything?
I sure can.
I do appreciate it. Thank you. I'll mute you again. All right, let's go ahead and get started with tables. So here we go. I'm on a worksheet that says start here, and I have a data range from A1 over to G11. One of the reasons to use a table is I'm going to go to Insert, Table. It picks up that I have a header row. I'm going to click on OK. And it automatically creates a table. And up here is a tab called Table Tools Design. That is called a contextual tab. So if I click outside the table, Table Tools Design disappears. Click back in it. So here's one easier reason to use a table. I immediately can do filters. If you notice, I have filter arrows. I'm going to click, pick GA, and hit OK. And I'm going to turn that filter off. So we have filters. That's an easy one. We also have sorting. I'm going to hit the arrow for state again. I'm going to do a sort A to Z. So there's a second reason for using tables. I'm going to go back and do a sort Z to A. Third reason to use tables is over here under Table Tools Design, I have table styles. When I hit this arrow, there are all the different styles that I have, and a live preview works. So just to keep this simple for now, I'm going to pick this one right here. So you can quickly change the layout of your table. So there's three reasons. The best reasons are coming. Here's another reason for using tables. I'm going to click the total row and watch what happens. It immediately sums up the 2019 numbers. But if I don't want the sum, I can change that to average or whatever Excel function I want to use in here. I'm going to stick with sum. There's 2018, and I'm going to change it to sum also. And if you turn off the total row, it goes away. You can also do, if you notice, I've got banded rows already selected. That is by default. I'm going to turn that off, back on, off. I can do banded columns if I want to. So it's an easy way just to format your table quickly. Now, a little trick for me that I know, whenever I have numbers and then the header row, I prefer that the header row be aligned to the right, but the problem is if I have filters running, I can't see them. So I could easily turn the filters off, but I want the filters to run. So here's the trick. I'm going to highlight these two because they're aligned to the right. I'm going to go back to the Home tab, and in the alignment group, I don't want to go left align. That's what I don't prefer that. So I'm aligned to the right. You actually click on Increase Indent, and usually 2 times does it for me. There's just a little trick. Now, before you make a table, so I made a table from scratch automatically. Let me go to exercise 1. I'm going to go to exercise 2. Before you make a table, you need to make sure you don't have any blank rows and any blank columns. Here's the trick to do that. It's a keyboard trick. So click inside your data range once, because it doesn't say Table Tools up here. Control A. Control A will only select the current range you're in. So if I had another range over in column I, J, and K, it would not pick it up. And then Control period. I'm holding down the Control key and I'm pressing the period, and it will jump you from each corner of that range you're in. Now, when you're down here in the last row, you usually need to scroll down just a little bit to make sure there's nothing down here in row 63 or 64. But this is actually a great range to convert to a table. So I set this up for you. Let me show you one that's incorrect. I'm gonna go to the worksheet called incorrect. I'm gonna do my Control A, and there's my point. Someone put in a blank column with absolutely nothing in it. And I don't need to do it, but there's my control period. So to fix this, highlight, unhide, delete. Let's test it one more time. Control A, control period, we're good to go. Before we move on, I have a little question to ask you. Let me pull it up real quick here. And if you would, just take 10 seconds to answer that for me. Mac users are fine. If you recall, when I came to the UGA, some of y'all had the Mac. Perfect, thank you. I'm in that now. I'm back in here. So let me do this again now that this is correct. If you don't want to go to Insert Table, since we're doing a lot of keyboard tricks because they're sometimes faster, it is Control T. Mac users, it's either Command T or Control T. Both will work. Click OK. So I have a table again. And once again, I'm going to just go over here and change it just because I'm doing a webinar and I think this will look a little bit better. All right. Another cool feature about tables is if I go down here to row 12 and start typing in a new client, the table automatically expands. A range will not automatically expand, but a table will. If I came over into column I, even the column expands. Once again, a range will not do that. So here's why that is important with the table. I'm gonna click on this exercise 1 here. I've only got a little bit of data and it's a range. I'm gonna do a chart with the keyboard Alt F1. If I add another state, let's do South Carolina, notice my chart did not pick it up. I'm gonna undo once, twice, 3 times, that works. Control T, make it a table. Click OK. Alt F1, there's my chart. South Carolina, 40. How about that? Another reason to use a table is the table range will expand. And I call this dynamic charts. Watch this. I'm going to change this to 2018 revenue. Tab over into column C. 2019 rev. And there I go again. So it's working. Keep on going. I'm going to go to exercise number 2. One of my favorite features of tables is on this exercise. I'm going to show you 2 more tricks with tables. If you notice, my header row is in row 1. We still got a data range. So if I scroll down, the header row disappears. I could go to row 2, go to the View tab, and freeze panes. But I'm going to go Control A. And we've already done this, so I'm going to stop there. I would do Control period. Control T, let's make it a table. I'm going to hit OK. When you have a table and you scroll down, you see the header row is staying frozen automatically. You don't have to go to freeze panes if you have a table. And what will happen is once you get to the very bottom, it will go away because you're no longer viewing your table. But anyway, that's a cool trick, is your header row is always available. Probably my absolute favorite feature with tables is right here. Let me move that over a little bit. I have invoice amount, I have cost. When you have a table, you have something called a calculated column. equal symbol. You also, not only do you have calculated columns, when you have a table, you have what I consider automatic nomenclature. It named that invoice amount minus cost. Watch what happens when I press enter. Enter. That is a calculated column. Automatically filled everything down. And let's try one more to see if it still works. Let's make this profit percentage equals that divided by that. Press enter. Perfect. There's your calculated columns. I did 2 of them. Whenever you create a table with Control T or Insert Table, it doesn't matter. By default, Microsoft Excel will also name it. So if I want to get back to Table 1, I'm using the name box to quickly just jump around. That's another nice feature about tables. And let's do one more question, if you would. I'm going to launch the poll right now, I hope. Just take 5 seconds to fill that out. The answer should be, by the way, I hope. So now you do know, correct? Control T or Insert Table. I appreciate it. That works. Thank you. I'm going to relaunch it one more time. So it's Control T or Insert Table. I appreciate it. Now we're in business. Thank you. Let me see what I've got over here. Got it now. Thank you, Scott. By the way, y'all can't see the chat box. You can see it on your screen, but it's not part of the webinar. So I'm recording this. I can't hear you. I can't see you, just to let you know that. So thank you. So far, so good. Anybody? If you would, let me hit me with the chat if you're enjoying this. I'm going to keep on going. Let's go to exercise number 3. This will be a good one. Control T, click OK. If you don't know how to use pivot tables, you're okay. In fact, my next webinar, and I'm going to cover a little bit of pivot tables today, but my next webinar is going to be strictly on pivot tables. Yes, Scott. The question from Scott was about inserting charts and graphs. So let me just do that again real quick. I'm going to go back to exercise 1. I'm going to get rid of this chart. I recommend you convert your range to a table, but even if you don't, it'll initially work, but it won't pick up the new stuff. So I'm going to click one time inside my data. If you want to chart everything, you don't have to select it. Just click one time in it, and it's either Alt F1, but I'm going to go the mouse way, insert. This is the charts group. By default, column charts. I'm going to put a column chart right there. We'll pull that over there. I could add a chart title. If you don't like the way the chart looks, I can switch the row and column, just clicking here. And by the way, when we created the table, I'm going to click outside the chart. I'm going to click back inside the table. It says Table Tools Design up at the top. Once again, that's a contextual tab. I'm going to click outside of it. It disappears. Notice that it does not say chart up here, but when I click in the chart, chart is also a contextual tab. It only shows up when you're working in the chart. I'm going to delete this. And Scott and everyone else, just so you know, I'm going to type the word total. Let's do that calculated column one more time. Equals the sum of these two. I like that naming feature too, by the way. There I go. If you need to do a different type of chart, I'm going to highlight just the states. I'm holding down the control key. I'm not going to let go of it. I'm highlighting D1 down to D6. I don't want a column chart. I'm going to put in that chart right there. And then from there, I can go and add percentages, whatever I want to do, also up here. And Scott, if anyone else has any questions about charts later, I've got a couple free videos on charts and I'll send you the links. Going back to exercise number 3, I've already converted to a table. It says Table Tool Design. Will do, Scott. Under Table Tools Design, let's make a pivot table. I'm going to go to the Insert tab, Pivot Table. Notice this is what's cool is it picks up Table 5 instead of saying A1 through whatever. I'm going to go put it on a new worksheet, and I'm going to click on OK. So it takes my header row and throws it over here. I'm going to go ahead and check State. And I'm going to check 2019. So there's my pivot table. If you notice, California is 504,000. I'm just going to round it. I'm going to go back to exercise 3 because that's the source. I know I don't want to sit here and type, so act like I'm putting in some customer numbers, but I'm going to make it California. I'm going to put in San Diego. There's that table automatically expanding. Let's give 135,000 and 105,000. So I just added 135,000. I go back to sheet 1, just simply right click and refresh this, and it just went to 609. If it was a data range, it would not, even with refresh, it would still say the 504,000. So another reason for using tables is your pivot tables become dynamic. Let me show you a cool little pivot table trick I know. And this is, I told you I'll talk about some pivot table options. My next webinar, which will probably be either next week or next month, I'm going to just do probably nothing but pivot tables. So if I sit here and widen columns, this drives me crazy about pivot tables. Let's say you've widened it, you've got it the way you want it to look. If I come back in here and refresh it, watch what happens. It immediately automatically resizes the columns. So I'm going to go, once again, a contextual tab. If I click out of here, it no longer says Pivot Table Tools. I'm going to click back in it. I'm going to go to the word Analyze. Over to the far left is Options. When I click on Options, I'll show you a couple items in here. These 2 boxes are checked by default. That's the one that really drives me crazy, the column width. I'm going to uncheck it. And I'm actually going to also go to Data. See this box right here that says Save Source Data with File? Let me show you why I like to leave that checked. I'm going to hit OK. So now if I resize, refresh, my columns are perfect. And now I know I've only got 2 columns, but usually in my pivot table, I usually have multiple columns like this. So that's why that becomes a big deal once I get them the way I want to. A lot of people don't know this. I have autosave turned on, and I'm going to hit the save icon. The only reason I'm hitting the save icon is I want to see how large this file is. I'm going to go to File, 80, I'm going to round up, 87 KB. If you have a lot of pivot tables, because we don't have a lot of data, to be honest with you, and most of the time at work, you're going to have a lot of data, and your pivot table and your Excel file are going to get really large. That pivot table, if I come up here to Analyze, I can always come here to change source data to see what it's based on, just so you know that. So I know it's based on this exercise 3. You can actually delete the worksheet that the pivot table is based on. So I'm going to right click on sheet 3, click on delete, click delete. This pivot table still works. In fact, I'll test it. I'm going to take state up here. So I just move state up into the filter area. I'm going to hit save. I believe we had 87 or 88. So it actually reduces the size of your file. I've seen it sometimes where you remove the data sheet that the pivot table is based on, and it reduces the file size by 50%. Okay. I appreciate the comments. Very nice. Thank you. Let me keep on going. Let me give you a little preview of the next webinar I'm going to do. I'm going to come back here to exercise 2. I want to point out that I have a bunch of reps in here and I have a bunch of different car brands. So let's go make this a pivot table. Insert, pivot table. It picks up table 4. Click OK. I'm going to check rep. I'm going to check invoice amount. And I'm also going to check the brand. By default, when you do a pivot table, row number 4, that is called a subtotal. It puts it at the top. No big deal, but I'm just telling you that's where it puts it. Carol Jones, that is a subtotal. I'm going to go to Pivot Table Tools Design. I'm going to click on subtotals and put them at the bottom. No big deal there. So now row 12 has the subtotal. 23 has got a subtotal. Here's the cool trick for you. By default, I'm summing up these invoice amounts. And there's my subtotal. You can do multiple subtotals in a pivot table. Here's the trick to doing that. If I right-click over here in column B, that right-click is no good. If I right-click on one of the different brands that I put in here, still no good. You actually have to right-click on that subtotal. So I'm going to right-click on A12. I'm going to go down to Field Settings. Jeff, I'm about to unmute you. Jeff, can you see these field settings, just so I know?
I can, yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
When you go right-click Field Settings, by default, subtotal say Automatic. I want you to go to Custom, and here's where I can say, not only do I want to see the total, which is sum, I want to see a count, an average, and a max. I could pick more of these or less of these. It doesn't matter. Watch what happens when I click on OK, row 12 down. Cool? I think so. Now, if you're saying, well, Chris, Art Vandelay, there is not obviously 13 numbers right here. I agree with you. It's counting the 13 numbers. I'm going to right-click and do a sort by rep. I'm going to highlight invoice amount. Look down in the bottom down here. It says count 13. So that's what it's actually counting, the 13. It's actually counting the records from the data source. And by the way, the average is 31,923. Let's go test that one. 31,923. So you can have multiple subtotals in a pivot table. What else do I want to do? Let me pull up my notes real quick. Okay, these are my notes. Let's see what we've done today. Column width and source data. Remember when I right-clicked and deleted the worksheet? So those were those two. 10 reasons to use tables. I will send you this link, but let me go ahead and just show you what this page looks like. So if you were taking notes today, that's great. I love note takers. Let me show you one more screen real quick. Here is the URL I'm going to send you, Excel tables. I ended up writing a technology article for a CPA magazine. And then I decided, you know, it's great that people can read through it, but sometimes just reading through this how to do software tricks isn't so easy. So if you click right here, it does say free. I promise you it's free. Come on, Internet. All I need is your name and email, and you make a password. Hit I agree, sign up, and the course starts. You don't have to go check your email or anything. Email's already in use. Do I got any Gmail users out there? Anybody at all? case you didn't know this, in a Gmail, you can put a period anywhere you want to before the @ symbol, and it'll actually consider it part of your email. Sign up, see if it works now. Anyway, there you go. Continue to course. Thanks for enrolling. Continue to course. You download the file and you just run through the videos right here. Start that file right there. Just download it. I even got some quizzes in here. So I cover the 10 reasons we just went through on PivotTables. On tables. Anyway, I'm wrapping up. I got a Q&A here. Let me see what it says. I'm always doing a sum in my... the question is, I'm always doing sum in my pivot tables. Is there a setting that will always use that function? That is a great question. Let me answer it right now. Let me go back to my Excel. And let me share this again. Jeff, can you see this?
Sure can.
Thank you. Okay. The question was, when I do a pivot table, why is it, and you want to do sum, why is it sometimes you don't get sum? I can tell you right now, be honest with you, I should convert this to a table, but I'm just going to do the pivot table the old-fashioned way, just insert, do it as a range. Pivot table. Yeah, that looks correct. Hit OK. I know if I do rep and invoice amount, it's going to sum it. The question is, why doesn't it? Here's the answer. I'm going to delete this one. So that pivot table is gone. I'm back in my data. Microsoft Excel is real funny about your data when you make a pivot table. If by chance, I'm under invoice amount, if you have blanks, I believe it will by default convert to the count function. Let's see if I'm right. Okay. Let me give it one more shot. I will follow up with you on that question. Let me try this one more time. Let me put in a 0 there. Insert pivot table, because that's going to drive me crazy, because I know what you're saying. I usually sometimes will get count too. Rep, invoice amount. There, that one went to count. Yeah, usually it's because you have blanks in here. Trust me, it wasn't that 0. I've got a blank in here. I got blanks, and sometimes it picks it up. So the trick would be make sure you don't have any blanks and make sure you don't have any text. And the function that you would use, in case you're wondering and want to know this, usually if you create an Excel file from scratch yourself, if you know what you're doing, you're not going to mix text and numbers. But I have seen people, when they download information, the question is that text or numbers? Because that's actually an O. The function is equal symbol is, actually just use equals T, the T function. The T function will determine whether something's a value or text. If it's text, it will return it, and it's automatically aligned to the left. If it's a value, it'll give you a blank. So there's still a formula in there, right there. Another one you can use if you don't like that one is I would check is text, and that's going to give you a true or false. So both of those are functions to tell if something's text. I've got 7:30. Do y'all have Q&A here? Scott asked, can we import data to build tables from an SAP system? That's a great question. I don't know the answer right now, but I'm going to save these questions and get back to you on that one. The answer is, I would believe you could, but I'm going to look into it. So Scott, I'll get back with you on that. Do y'all have on the chat here, I'm going to open it up. If you would, let me know if you have 5 more minutes. I'm usually a stickler for time. So just if you would, in the chat box, just say yes or no. I want to show you something really cool. By the way, if you're going to answer no, I guess you could actually just leave the meeting and not answer no, right? Okay, 5 more minutes at the most. Here we go. Thank you. Let me show you something really cool I figured out the other day. Let me close the chat box. Let me close that. So I have a data range in here. Let me undo and get back to where I was, if you don't mind. Here we go. Close that. Let's talk about filters just for a second. By default, filters cannot be saved. So I'm going to go to Data. I'm going to click on Filter. If I hit, I want to see people that are in Atlanta and New York, but I also want to see the brand. I only want to see Ford. I'm just making this up. So I have a total of 7 records in the bottom left corner. I have multiple filters I need to keep running, and I don't want to have to keep opening this Excel file every month and keep doing these filters. So what you can do is go to the View tab and select Custom Views. When you go to Custom Views, I'm going to add this, and I'm going to call it Ford ATL NY. Look right there. It says it's going to save my filter settings. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go to another filter. I'm also worried about Seattle. And for Seattle, I want to see Honda and Mazda. I'm going to go back to Custom View, Add. You can name this whatever you want. I could sit here and keep making more. I'm going to stop at 2. Here's what's so cool about this. I'm going to go to the Data tab. I'm going to turn off the filters. Next time, act like I made 7 filters. Next time I need to see my data, instead of having to remember what the filters are and run through them, I'm going to go to View. I'm going to go to Custom View. Notice I don't even have the filters running. Show. Done. Cool. One more time. Custom View, Ford, Show, changed. So by using custom views, that's how I save my filters. Chat box, let's see what's going on here. Thank you, I appreciate that. Pretty cool. I'm done, is that all right? And we'll have this up on YouTube by Saturday or Sunday, but I'll send you an email tomorrow anyway. It'll be after work, so it'll be after probably 5:36 before I get home. And also, don't forget to go sign up for the free class on tables. It really is free. Feel free to share it with your coworkers and your friends. So I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. Jeff, thank you so much. Jeff, I just unmuted you.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it, Chris. That was great.
Okay. Sorry for going 4 minutes over. I got 7:34, so we're going to end this. The Q&A. Yep, Dawn, I see your Q&A. I'm going to follow up with everyone, and you got my email anyway, but you'll get an email from me tomorrow, and I'll look in this SAP question. Thank you all.
Thanks, Chris. Look forward to the invite.
Okay. Bye, everyone.